Hello, students and former students, and hopefully uh, those who might be interested in taking a look at my website or Patreon, and you may want to follow me or become a student. I want to emphasize something about Gurdjieff. Some of you have heard of Gurdjieff, and you have some of his books. But the one book I emphasize is In Search of the Miraculous. I've studied this book for over 50 years. And my teacher, the late Gregory Grover, introduced me to Gurdjieff in 1970 when I met my teacher. Gurdjieff talks about the idea of coming to master oneself, master our emotions. So I want to talk about my teacher's book, How to Solve Life's Problems, which is you can access this book on my website. And however, I want to just go to chapter 41. It's a beautiful essay, and it's called Beyond the Level of Life. One of the fundamental points to understand about the work required for growth, and this Gurdjieff emphasizes, is that it does not begin at the level of life, but originates from a different level. What is he talking about? Now, you've read this before. Some of you have this book. If you don't, I recommend it because my teacher has taken us students as how it relates to Spinoza and Gurdjieff's ideas. And the idea of Gurdjieff and Spinoza is just not to read his work, but learn how to live his ideas, live their ideas. Because if you begin to understand their ideas, you'll change from being, say, depressed, anxious, fearful. Those will work. Those are emotions. But the reason they're there's a cause and effect of things. So the mind, as you begin to understand and acknowledge the understanding, and that's the active part of the mind. Again, there's two parts of the mind, the passive part and the active part. The active part wants to understand, and the passive mind is the ego state. It remains as it is, doesn't want to change, doesn't believe in anything. It's probably an atheist. But you have the right to be an atheist. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. But I'm looking for individuals who want to understand themselves. As Socrates says, the highest knowledge possible is to know thyself. All right. So what does he say about growth? It doesn't begin at the level of life. Many individuals who believe they are interested in growth attempt to go about it as they would approach any other project. Whether it is working on one's job, studying for some profession, designing a building, or composing music. So, for instance, you might be highly successful. You might be high IQ, be Elon Musk, Steve Gates, or others. Or you might be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a hairstylist like I was, or a realtor. Or just have a regular job. That's great. Whatever you do to help you exist and buy the things that you find pleasurable and go on places where you like to be entertained, that's good. That's important. But for spiritual growth or growth in the work that I do, to understand Gurdjieff and to Spinoza, again, it's just not to read, and not to just listen, but to understand, because it's the understanding as we begin to see a change. How do I know this? Because I've changed. If you read my first book, How Spinoza and Gurdjieff Changed My Life, I was a very fearful young man. When I met my teacher at 30 years old, of course, I had a business, I had a clientele, and I was married, had a home. Now, this was in the 70s. Today, it's almost impossible to do that with the wages we have today. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I had everything, but yet I was very unhappy. Why? Because I was passive and I lived in my ego state. And something in me intuitively said, there's something more. And that's when I met my teacher, and it changed my life. That's why I want to share these ideas. It will change your life as you begin to understand your nature. Socrates says the greatest knowledge of all is to know thyself. But what is there to know? Know your emotions, know how you think. And you can go from as I was a fearful young man, always concerned about the opinions of others, fearful of making mistakes, and I did lousy in school. I never could finish school. I didn't go to college because it was too difficult. But when I found my teacher, I discovered my mind. And that's what I'm doing with you. Help you understand that you have a mind that can understand the laws of your nature and the laws of nature. All right, so let's take a look at this again. The path of spiritual growth cannot be attempted successfully in this way. The desire for true growth must originate from a source in the individual which he or she has very likely never worked with before. His or her essential nature. What does that mean, essential? The essential, look at the word, dictionary, essential, most important. For instance, Spinoza wrote his first book called The Short Treatise on God and the Nature of Man. This was written before the short treatise, the ethics. The short treatise was basically written for his students. But in this particular chapter, he says, our first birth is we become aware of our body and all the desires that manifest. We have 5 senses: touch, smell, sight, hearing, and taste. These 5 senses gather information, and this information will help us learn to exist and survive. But we want to do more than just exist. So over time, you're first aware of your body and all the pleasures that the body brings. Oh, there's a lot. There's sex, there's food, there's scenery, there's the ocean, there's a sunset, everything. It's so beautiful. But yet there's more. Because Spinoza says the second birth is when we begin to become aware of different effects. A higher level of happiness is a different effect. Joy, a sense of self-approval, becoming a master of oneself is a higher effects. Higher effects. So the second birth is become aware of yourself, thyself, how to understand your nature. And to understand is the goal, because this understanding is connected with the understanding of God's nature. You might say, well, I don't believe in God. Well, that's okay. But you begin to know yourself, and change is going to happen. But you must learn how to journal. Journaling is going to be is an important part of how to come to true growth. Many of you probably have a diary, especially if you're a woman, a diary, or some of you have had a journal. And the journaling process is to learn how to discover your emotions. There are events that trigger you. So you might meet a new friend at a restaurant, and they never show up. What's happening? How do you feel about that experience? You might feel, you're going to feel painful. It's going to be painful. You feel hurt. You feel sad. You feel anxiety and frustration. You felt the emotions. You feel pain, hate, and anger. Those emotions are normal, okay emotions, as long as you don't try to hurt someone with your anger. But you begin to want to look at it. And I have another book called The Way of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. On page 76, it explains exactly my process when I was affected by my neighbor who was losing her mind, having dementia, and knocking on my door several times a day. And I would begin frustrated, and I tried to get management to do something, and they wouldn't. I called the police. They wouldn't do anything. So I was stuck. And eventually she was put in a hospital. But she would do this every week, several weeks on my door. So what did I do? I felt pain, I felt hate, and I'm angry. So I journaled, and I began to understand in my journaling. As you begin to journal, this will be a process of self-awakening. Okay, now let's read on. So your essential nature is a greater part of you that will continue to exist even though the body dies. So I'm going to be 83 this year. I'm looking forward to it. Why? Because I'm looking forward for the next 20 years, 103, say, or more. Because this work is so dynamic. I wish you understood it. I understand it, and I love to communicate it and work with you to understand it, because it furthers my growth. I must learn how to work with you where you are. Everybody's at a different level. And hopefully, see, even now, how resistance in you to call and email me and say, I want to become a student. How can I do that? All right. So now, beyond the level of life, it's beyond your normal effort. You apply effort to become an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, or hairstylist. There's a certain level, but that kind of level will not help you look at yourself, help you see yourself. I've had many highly intelligent intellectuals, high IQ, but they cannot penetrate Spinoza. Spinoza, his ethics must be, say, understood from a different level of your nature, your essential nature. Just about everything we do on the level of life, again, this is the level of life, that deals with personality and physical survival. The level of life relates to money, power over others, and approval from others. Sensory pleasures, intellectual pleasures, the inferiority, superiority complex, and the instinct for survival. Now that is life. Some of you are doing it very well. You have a nice home, you have a lot of money, you have a retirement, you have friends, you go to the greatest restaurants. But all that could be taken from you. Today is Friday, January 26, 2024. Recently, there were floods in San Diego. I live in Santa Monica, California. And recently, and just a week ago, there was a major flood in San Diego, parts of San Diego, and homes were destroyed, cars were destroyed. Everything was taken from them. Even my partner, Margaret, she had a home in New York, and there was a superstorm, about 10 years ago or so, and just almost totally destroyed her home, lost everything. And fortunately, she had to rebuild, and then she eventually sold her home, and now she lives in Santa Monica. But we can lose everything if you're only identified with your home, your money, and your career, and your friends and your family, and they leave you. You're stuck with yourself. I live in a community, 150 individuals, seniors, a senior community. Thank God I found it. I was on a waiting list for 3 years, and I finally got here. It's a small space I have, but it's all I need: a place to sleep, a kitchen, and a bathroom. And I have access to Santa Monica. I walk to the pier, I walk to the Palisades Park, and I overlook the Pacific Ocean. So being a senior and low income, I live here. I love it here. But it's more than, so you are more than, let's say, a biological robotic being, a semi-conscious being. You're more than an automatic semi-conscious robotic being. You also have a mind. When you access that mind, that's an awakened state, and then you know what nirvana really means, what enlightenment really means. The light of the mind is the understanding. All of these relate to the realm of ordinary experience. But the work for growth, again, the work for growth relates to the level of one's inner being. It is not motivated by any other desire but the inner hunger for essential self-fulfillment. Self-fulfillment. My God, we have pleasures. I love to eat. I love to look at the sunsets. I love to ride my electric bike. These are nice pleasures, no question. However, there is more. Fulfillment. True happiness. Happiness is not, that people are happy with what they do, where they go, or they go to a Coliseum, they see Taylor Swift, great musician. They'll travel hundreds of miles, spend thousands of dollars to go to be in the audience, and then it's gone, it's over with. But you were there, you can tell everybody about it. That's pleasure. Yes, but doesn't last. You have a lot of money in the bank, or you're on vacation, you travel. That's pleasure, but it doesn't last. You're always looking for more pleasure, and you will never be fulfilled. Fulfillment is possible when you come to learn to understand your nature and have access to your higher intelligence, the understanding. The work for growth arises from a deeper self-awareness of the hunger to gain self-mastery and to liberate oneself from the bondage of our emotions. Look at that. Let's read this again. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit because this is so important. But the work for growth relates to the level of one's inner being. It is not motivated by any other desire but the inner hunger for essential self-fulfillment. It brings no external rewards. It satisfies no instincts. It does not appease the senses. The work for growth arises from a deeper self-awareness of the hunger to gain self-mastery and to liberate oneself from the bondage of emotions. See, some of you have been with me. You're former students. You might want to come back. I don't know. See, I might have said something that hurt your feelings. All right. Could you forgive me? But can you overcome your ego being hurt? That's the ego state. We are so easily offended. Why? Because we rely on the opinions of others. I am pleading for you to awaken your mind and work on your essential nature. Because one must be aware that there are two distinct separate sides to man and a woman's nature, the essential and the existential. The essential represents the content of life, and the existential is the framework. Existential is a frame, meaning your environment, your job, the places you live, the places you go, all your material is the existential, in your body. It picks up information, existential. The essential is the idea, to get the idea of what you're doing and to incorporate it into your understanding. Therefore, if you have a genuine desire to grow, you must learn from these two aspects of your nature exists, that they are separate and that the spiritual is the sign that must be intuitively clear if you are to attain a truly fulfilled level of life, a life beyond the level of ordinary existence. Right now there are tragedies all over the world. Palestine and Israel. What a catastrophe that is. Horrendous view. And however, both sides live from their ego state. It's interesting. The Jewish religion, beautiful. The Muslim religion, beautiful. Buddhist, beautiful. There are many spiritual leaders talk about the essential or spiritual part of man, but it's hard to live there. You talk about it, you might go to a mosque, you might go to a church, you might be Christians. Oh, the Bible, a lot of nice things in it. The idea, the Ten Commandments, yes, they're nice, but the unfortunate reality is the ego state follows dogmatically without understanding. The essential man, the essential woman is the understanding, to understand the laws of nature, the laws of your emotions. Because I'll give you an example, anger. The definition of anger is desire, whereby through hatred we are induced to remove or destroy the object of our hate. So anger includes hate. And hate says that we are in pain and someone causes our pain. So this is the problem with human nature. We haven't really evolved very much from even 2,000 years ago. The Romans had the power, and the slaves were everyone else, the Jews and the Gentiles. And this man called Jesus comes along. He was a man, but the Christians made him a god, but he was a man, he was a prophet. He said some good things, and he was a threat to the Jewish people. Say the hierarchy of the Jews. I would say that the Torah, beautiful. Spinoza was kicked out of the Jewish community because he dared to say that God does not favor anyone. That the Jews, being the special covenant of God, special people, they are the chosen people, doesn't apply in that today. And that was the 17th century. So he was kicked out of the community for saying such a thing. And he also says the Bible is not the work of man, but the work of it's not the work of God, but the work of man. So Spinoza was a threat to society, the Christians and the Jews, and so his books were banned. But yet Spinoza's ideas will always flourish. They're forever. They'll never end. If you begin to understand your nature, Spinoza, his ethics, and Gurdjieff. I introduced Gurdjieff as the beginning of the work that I do. So I hope to hear from you. Have a good day. Hope your life is improving. I hope you're enjoying your life. Take care. Bye-bye.